Want to get creeped out? Let's talk about the Answer Man ritual. This is a ritual where you ask the Answer Man for any knowledge that you basically desire to have, but beware the questions that you will have to answer in return and the risk of what you might lose if you answer one of his questions incorrectly. So for this game or ritual, which I do not suggest you do, I have to say that every time, okay? I'm sorry that I'm fun and I like to share creepy rituals and games and stories, but don't do it. But I will tell you how, but don't do it. Anyway, so you need 10 people and you need 10 burner phones. 10 people sit in a circle and each person gives their phone number to the person on their right, or get the phone number from the person on your left, because that's who you'll be calling. And make sure you put them in the phone as a contact so that it's quick when you need to call them. There will be one person who is in charge of counting to 3, and make sure they specify whether it's on 3 or immediately after 3 when each person will call the person to their left. So everyone is calling each other at the same time. If all calls go to voicemail or a busy signal, the ritual did not work and you have to try again later, not in like 10 minutes, but like a couple hours at least. If 9 people experience their call going to voicemail or to a busy signal, then that means this worked. The one other person will get through to the Answer Man. This person can ask the Answer Man any question that they want an answer to. Once he has answered their question, he will ask them a question in return. It is imperative that they answer honestly and correctly to his question, and no lying directly or by omission. The person who got through to the Answer Man can repeat this process as many times as they want. But if you do answer one of the Answer Man's questions incorrectly when he asks you a question, you'll start to feel a certain part of your body tingling. It could be a finger, it could be a toe, it could be your head. One day he will take this body part from you as payment. It could be by some physical accident or illness, and it could be soon, and it could be years from now, but he will take it. Here's some more information about the ritual. The person who gets through to the Answer Man is not to pass that phone around for everybody to ask questions. The Answer Man answers to one person only, and that's the person who got through to him in the first place. When they're ready to end the call, they have to tell the Answer Man that they must go. There's a good chance that the Answer Man will try to stop you from hanging up, and he'll do this by offering up knowledge for free, potentially very enticing knowledge. Do not stay on the line. Repeatedly tell the Answer Man that you must go. If you're persistent enough, the Answer Man will hang up. Destroy all burner phones used during the ritual once the ritual is done. Destroy them no matter what. Otherwise, you might find something trying to call you back. Now, if you have not been persistent enough in telling the Answer Man that you must go, if he has kept you on the line so that you can hear this enticing free knowledge, prepare yourself for the question he will ask you next. It will not be like his questions before, and it might be impossible to answer. Lastly, do not hang up on the Answer Man. It will not end well for you. Let me know if you want to know about people who have tried this ritual, and I'll see you next time. Want to get creeped out? Let's talk about the Answer Man ritual. This is a ritual where you ask the Answer Man for any knowledge that you basically desire to have, but beware the questions that you will have to answer in return and the risk of what you might lose if you answer one of his questions incorrectly. So for this game or ritual, which I do not suggest you do, I have to say that every time, okay? I'm sorry that I'm fun and I like to share creepy rituals and games and stories, but don't do it. But I will tell you how, but don't do it. Anyway, so you need 10 people and you need 10 burner phones. 10 people sit in a circle and each person gives their phone number to the person on their right, or get the phone number from the person on your left, because that's who you'll be calling. And make sure you put them in the phone as a contact so that it's quick when you need to call them. There will be one person who is in charge of counting to 3, and make sure they specify whether it's on 3 or immediately after 3 when each person will call the person to their left. So everyone is calling each other at the same time. If all calls go to voicemail or a busy signal, the ritual did not work and you have to try again later, not in like 10 minutes, but like a couple hours at least. If 9 people experience their call going to voicemail or to a busy signal, then that means this worked. The one other person will get through to the Answer Man. This person can ask the Answer Man any question that they want an answer to. Once he has answered their question, he will ask them a question in return. It is imperative that they answer honestly and correctly to his question, and no lying directly or by omission. The person who got through to the Answer Man can repeat this process as many times as they want. But if you do answer one of the Answer Man's questions incorrectly when he asks you a question, you'll start to feel a certain part of your body tingling. It could be a finger, it could be a toe, it could be your head. One day he will take this body part from you as payment. It could be by some physical accident or illness, and it could be soon, and it could be years from now, but he will take it. Here's some more information about the ritual. The person who gets through to the Answer Man is not to pass that phone around for everybody to ask questions. The Answer Man answers to one person only, and that's the person who got through to him in the first place. When they're ready to end the call, they have to tell the Answer Man that they must go. There's a good chance that the Answer Man will try to stop you from hanging up, and he'll do this by offering up knowledge for free, potentially very enticing knowledge. Do not stay on the line. Repeatedly tell the Answer Man that you must go. If you're persistent enough, the Answer Man will hang up. Destroy all burner phones used during the ritual people once the ritual is done. Destroy them no matter what. Otherwise, you might find something trying to call you back. Now, if you have not been persistent enough in telling the answer man that you must go, if he has kept you on the line so that you can hear this enticing free knowledge, prepare yourself for the question he will ask you next. It will not be like his questions before, and it might be impossible to answer. Lastly, do not hang up on the answer man. It will not end well for you. Let me know if you want to know about people who have tried this ritual, and I'll see you next time.
I'm gonna give y'all a quick little story time before I go to bed. I apologize in advance if I'm whispering, but baby girl's asleep. So when I was in Haiti, after a full day of playing with my friends, nighttime, what we would do is we would sit around under the full moon and tell each other stories, including scary stories. And we were all from different families, from different places. So there was tons of stories going around. And there was this one particular friend. She started to tell us stories of how her family is into voodoo, and that when she was born, she was buried alive for 3 days and 3 nights. And yes, that's actually a thing. Usually when you're born into families that where voodoo is their culture, it's like a protection thing for the baby. Anyways, the baby's born, you do some kind of ritual on the baby, and you bury the baby alive for 3 days and 3 nights. And yes, the baby survives. Anyways, growing up for her, lots of weird things always happened to her, obviously. Like, she would get whooped at night by spirits if she did something bad. She would encounter zombies all the time. But out of all these things, in my opinion, the worst thing about them all is the fact that she told me that her family married her off to a loa. So obviously that's something that is stuck with her for the rest of her life. And if she ever don't want any part of it, it's gonna take a lot of work, a lot of fasting, a lot to get rid of that. Anyways, so her family is preparing her and everything as she grows up, and they always told her that she can't have boyfriends, and she may not even be able to get married in the future, but if she does, she has to ask the loa for permission, and whoever that might propose to her, she has to present him to the loa, and the loa has to approve. She says that she's never alone. The loa and a lot of other things follows her everywhere she goes. Now imagine hearing that at a young age on a full night at nighttime with no electricity outside. Us kids were terrified, and it's safe to say that we didn't really play with her as much anymore.
My experiences in hotels, and this is coming from Alexander DeVille here on TikTok. By the way, thank you so much for letting me share this with everybody. This is the time to sit back, relax, maybe go grab a snack, because this is a long story, but it is so good. Hey Letty, I wanted to share some of my experiences since Halloween is around the corner. I've had some unusual experiences whenever I stay in hotels while traveling. Strange things always seem to happen, and I'm usually the only one who wakes up and hears things while everyone else is fast asleep. I encountered ghosts and communicated with some of them growing up. However, throughout the years, I started to suppress my spiritual side. As I got older, I've reconnected with my spirituality and intuition, but still keep my distance from spirits. I often joke with my friends that I'm probably the only one who gets woken up by strange noises in hotels because I am more open to the spiritual side than they are. I think it's because I'm in a familiar and controlled environment at home, but it's not my space in a hotel, so I am more vulnerable to these occurrences. My friends and I traveled to Denver, Colorado for a concert. It was 3 of my friends, and one of them brought their younger brother, whom we all call Steve for his privacy, who is a few years younger than us. All 4 of us slept in the bedroom while Steve stayed in the living room on the couch. I remember hearing banging on the door in the middle of the night. I assumed it was Steve, who needed to use the restroom, which was in the bedroom. Despite the loud noise, none of my friends in the room seemed to have woken up. Feeling tired, I assumed Steve would figure out that he just needed to slide the door open, so I didn't bother getting up to open the door and fell back to sleep. The next day, I asked Steve why he had been banging on the door if all he had to do was slide it open. He looked confused and denied ever waking up during the night. Everyone was a little unnerved, so I changed the subject to prevent them from getting scared. Later that day, they received the news that their uncle had passed away the night before. We couldn't help but wonder if it was their uncle who had been banging on the door the previous night. This other time, we went out of town and had to stay in a hotel. But before I continue my story, I want to mention that I have been a devotee of La Santa Muerte for 2 years here on Dia de los Muertos. Steve asked me about La Santa Muerte and said he had heard she was bad. I explained that the Santa Muerte is not not inherently bad. It depends on the intention of the person seeking her help. Some people may misuse her power for negative purposes, while others use it for good. In general, she cares for and protects her devotees. She is not for everyone, but she deserves respect because we will all see her when the day comes. I also mentioned that I always light a candle and pray to her for our safety when traveling. After our conversation, we called it a night and went to bed. It was the next day. We checked out of the hotel and started driving back home. On our way, Steve told us that he had seen a dark shadow sitting next to my feet on my side of the bed. He mentioned that he blinked several times to make sure he was seeing right. And indeed, he saw a figure sitting right next to me while I was sleeping. He said he couldn't see its face because it was facing away from where he was, but he got scared and covered his face with the blanket. Despite him feeling frightened, he told himself, "No, Steve, you have to see what it is." So he got the courage to uncover his face, but there was nothing there anymore, and then later went back to sleep. While he was finishing his story, I looked at him through the rearview mirror and asked, "Was she wearing a cloak?" He said yes. I smiled and said, "Who you saw was La Santa Muerte." He looked at me with shock and fear, but I told him not to be scared. She was just watching over me while I slept. This is why she was beside me, next to my feet, like a mother watching over her sleeping child. Mi santita siempre me cuida. Knowing that she was watching over me while I slept warms my heart. The next time we went out of town, Steve didn't want to go anymore. He said it wasn't because of what he had seen, but I low-key think that's why. But then again, I don't blame him. It would be expected for anyone to be afraid, especially because we're all taught to fear death. In our next trip, there was only 4 of us and Steve didn't want to go. Let's call them Jenny, Eva, and Sam for their privacy. That day, we went to a mystical store where they sell crystals and images. In this store, there was a section of statues of duendes. I automatically did not make eye contact with them and did not make any negative comments on how they looked because I knew you should never disrespect a duende and their appearance. As I walked around the store, something kept calling me back to where they were, and I was tempted to buy one and have it for my protection in my home. But in the end, I decided not to buy it because it is a lot of responsibility to have one in your home, and they are known for being pranksters and getting jealous of pets, and I would not do that to my poodle, so I left it as is. Jenny, Sam, and Eva brought protection necklaces. After leaving the shop, we went to a different store. As we walked, Jenny's purse was unclipped from the straps and fell off her shoulder. Her protection necklace fell out of her purse. I jokingly told her that the evil spirits didn't want her to have that necklace. We all laughed and her purse kept falling off. I would understand if the clips to the straps were loose or broken, but the clips were perfectly fine. We went to Chick-fil-A and I was standing behind her in line when it happened again. She was about to reach into her purse to get her wallet. I saw it unclip this time before Jenny reached over to her purse. Even the clerk saw it and looked at Jenny weirdly, so Jenny finally got tired of it falling and decided to carry it instead. After we finished eating, we went back to the hotel. I brought up the topic of duendes and told them that I hope none of them had said anything negative about the duendes at the store. Jenny looked nervous and said yes. I thought to myself that they were weird, ugly looking. I told her, "No, Jenny, you should never make negative comments about them or they might get upset with you." Nothing happened after that. I wonder if the duendes were unclipping her purse. It was night and we were getting ready to go to bed. There were 2 queen beds. Jenny and Eva slept in one while Sam and I slept in the other. Eva was teasing Jenny, telling her she better not snore because last time she couldn't get sleep because of her. Not to throw shade at Jenny, but she does snore pretty loud. I told her we could have a snoring competition and see who snores the loudest, and we laughed about it and went to sleep. It was around 6 a.m. and the sun had not yet risen. I could hear faint talking, although it wasn't loud, but in a lower tone. I thought to myself, why are Jenny and Eva having a whole conversation this early in the morning? I was so tired because we had gone to sleep late that night. I tried to ignore them. I ignored what they were saying, but I realized there was snoring and only one person talking. Then I started to sound repetitive, and I thought, wait, that kind of sounds like a spell or a ritual or something. Who the fuck is casting a spell right now and on who? So I kept my eyes closed and focused on what was being said. That's when I realized the small voice was saying, "Accept your eyes," in a rhythm with Jenny snoring. So I figured Ava was probably talking in her sleep. Jenny kept snoring and the little voice kept saying, "Accept your eyes." I really had to go pee, so I got up to go to the restroom and also to see who was talking. When I got in front of the bed, I realized Eva was not moving her mouth. I looked to see if there was anything in between that could be making that noise, but there was nothing. That's when I realized it was coming out of Jenny, even though she was snoring loudly. Oh, I got chills. Wait. I told myself it was way too early for the paranormal shit, and I really needed to pee. So I went to the restroom and did my business while listening to the voice, and the voice stopped stopped as soon as I flushed the toilet. Then I came out and everything was the same, except there was no longer a small female voice saying, "Accept your eyes." I decided to go back to sleep and tell them about it in the morning. In the morning, I told them what I had heard, and Jenny was in denial. I told her, "Jenny, I wouldn't make this up," but I think she was scared to accept that the voice was coming out of her. She even said that sometimes people mumble when they snore, but I told her, "No, Jenny, this was a completely clear voice saying, 'Accept your eyes.' While you snore, there is no way you can do both at the same time." Then I remembered that I have an app that records my sleeping patterns and sometimes records noises while I sleep. The recording is not as clear as it was in person, but in person it was crystal clear on what was being said. I will see if I can somehow submit the audio to you. I am not good with editing audio, but I tried to reduce Jenny's snoring so that you can hear the small voice saying, "Accept your eyes." I did ask Jenny for her permission to submit the audio, and I do have the audio. We will continue to travel together and occasionally see or hear things, but I just keep it to myself, and if they hear something, I try to make an excuse up so they don't get frightened. My friends believe the message was intended for me, encouraging me to embrace my third eye as I no longer communicate with the spirit realm, as I did when I was younger. Out of the four of us, I was the only one who heard the voice. I think the message was more for Jenny to accept what she sees when encountering a duende and to never disrespect a duende. But who do you think the message was for? Personally, I feel like the message was for him because he heard it. If he hadn't told anybody, they wouldn't have even known. But then again, I can see the other side too. So what do you guys think? The audio is 5 minutes long. I don't know if I'm gonna cut it down shorter when I'm editing or not, but without further ado, here is the audio for you. Am I rhyming? Oh my god, I'm a rapper. You're not a rapper, dumb bitch. Here's the audio. So, after hearing the audio, what do you think? Did you hear it? Who do you think that message was for? Please leave it in the comments.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
A follower named Ember sent me the story and said that ever since she's had this experience, she hasn't been able to go back home. She said that in this small town in Texas, there's a man-made graveyard with just barely a handful of graves in an open field surrounded by a bunch of trees. Well, behind the graveyard are two houses that belong to the family who takes care of the cemetery. Ember said that she's been to this graveyard dozens of times before, both during the day and at night because she's a ghost hunter. So obviously she's used to witnessing strange things, but this night was different. After about 30 minutes of walking through the graves, she started heading toward the back fence near the two houses when she saw someone. It was a lady standing by a tree that moments earlier had been empty. Ember didn't understand how she overlooked another person being in the area with her, but decided to be friendly anyways, thinking maybe she was a fellow ghost hunter. She described this lady as wearing a blue hoodie and blue jeans, so seemingly very normal, not in a white dress or anything like we often see. But because the lady was standing with her back facing the porch lights of the homes at the back of the cemetery, Ember wasn't able to see her face. She called out to the girl just being polite and saying hi and asking if she was from around the area, but there was no response. The lady just stood there perfectly still, but her body language seemed really tense, like at any moment she was ready to lunge at Ember. While she's waiting for a response, Ember noticed that even the crickets and the wind had gotten quiet at this point. And even though she's had some scary experiences, she said she's never felt more scared. So she began to walk backward a little bit, trying to leave the same way she came in because she was starting to feel uneasy. But then slowly, this lady took a step toward her. Ember immediately stepped back just for this girl to once again step toward her. She said that the only way she could describe it is what it would feel like to be someone's prey. This time, Ember raised her flashlight into the direction of this woman, and when the beam of light hit the girl's face, there wasn't one. Just smooth, pale skin completely blank, with areas where her eyes, nose, and mouth should have been but weren't. And in that split second after the light hit her face, the lady charged at Ember. Ember took off running faster than she's ever ran in her life, and as she ran, she could hear footsteps behind her getting closer every moment. When she finally reached the front porch of her home, she turned around just to see that the girl was gone. Ember said that not only did she stop going ghost hunting after this experience, but she also moved away from home a few months later and hasn't returned since. And honestly, I don't blame her.
If your child has an imaginary friend, you may not want to watch this. Do not say I did not warn you. Now, in 2003, Jacob and his wife have a little girl. Their first child was a little boy, and he had always been a special little kid. Now, during this time, they rented a house in their price range. They loved this house. It had a beautiful yard. It was a brick home. It had a finished basement. There was one demand of the landlord, though, that was a little suspicious. There was a door in the basement that was connected to a room that they called the office, and this door had, like, padlocks and locks all over it. And the landlord just told them, like, listen, you can use the entire house. I don't care, but I have one demand of you, and that is do not ever open that door. The landlord did, however, promise that there was nothing sinister about this, that he was just keeping his personal belongings there, like his storage there, which get a storage unit, but whatever. Things were great for the first year. Their son was 2 years old though, so he was moving around quite a bit. Now, shortly after he turns 2 and he's moving around the house a lot, he starts talking to somebody that isn't there. And every time his mom and dad ask him, who are you talking to? And he always says, my friend Jimmy. Now, Jimmy was really important to him. No matter where he was or what he was doing, Jimmy always had a place where he was. As time went on though, things changed a little bit. It seemed as though their son was starting to fear Jimmy. He started to not want to play in his room, and when his parents would ask why, he would say that Jimmy was mean and that Jimmy was scaring him. Now, a couple weeks go on of him being afraid of Jimmy and them having to kind of like veer around issues about Jimmy, when all of a sudden he starts acting a little bit strange. He starts doing things that were out of the ordinary for him. He's getting into trouble a lot. And when his parents would ask him, why are you suddenly doing these things? You know they're wrong. He would say, so that I don't make Jimmy mad. Things unfortunately would take a turn for the worse. After he started doing these things that were getting him into trouble, his mom and dad started noticing that there was little bruises all over him and also bite marks. And when they would ask Timmy, who is doing this to you? But as soon as they would ask him this question, that he would start to freak out and he'd be like, I'm not supposed to tell you. Jimmy is gonna get so mad at me. I'm not supposed to tell you. Just absolutely terrified. Well, this starts getting so bad that Timmy won't sleep in his room anymore. And one day, Jacob and his wife are in the living room and they're just talking about how they need to get a clergy in there or someone to bless the home, when suddenly they hear this loud crash and they just hear glass break. Now, this is coming from Timmy's room. So they walk into his room to see what the hell is going on. And there's this picture that is on the wall, but it's not on the wall. It's resting on a shelf. And this shelf has rails around it. And then the picture itself is nailed to the wall on top of the rails being around it. This picture had flown off of the wall past Timmy's bed and crashed on the middle of the floor. And this was a picture of Timmy, their son. And there was no way that this could have just fallen off. There's no way it could have made the distance that it made across his bed, especially with it having rails around it and being nailed to the wall and then also flying over his bed. There was just no way. So at this point, they have had enough and they're like, we need to call a pastor or a priest or someone. So they call a pastor and a prayer group to come to the house so that they can bless the house. Now, the evening before this pastor and the prayer group were supposed to come to their house, his wife and the son are at home alone. And this is where it just gets bad. So his wife decides that she's going to give Timmy a bath. So she runs the warm water and then she puts all of his toys in the bath and then she puts Timmy inside of the bath. She's kind of sitting on her knees. She turns off the water and her son was talking to her when suddenly she notices that her son just stops talking and looks directly past her. She says at this point that she suddenly just got this overwhelming feeling of dread and the room just turned ice cold. Well, he then looks down, starts playing with his toys again, and then he just looks back up like this and looks past her again and then just yells, Jimmy, leave us alone. So at this point, his wife is scared and she just looks at her son and she just says, is Jimmy behind me, Bubby? And Timmy just goes, oh, I just got chills. So she slowly turns around and right behind her is this see-through apparition of this little boy peeking around the door frame. Except for this was no ordinary little boy. His hair was soaked. He had long teeth and his eye sockets were empty. She screams, grabs her son, runs out of the house, and will not go back into that house until it is blessed. So the prayer group and the clergy come to bless the house, the priest, and as soon as they come and they start praying and doing their thing, this putrid smell comes over the air and the whole energy of the entire house just shifts to darkness. this. But after that, no more Jimmy. Now, they never did open that door, but they always wondered what was behind it. They believed this was not a little boy, but a creature portraying itself as one, hurting their son. It's now almost 2026, so that is almost 23 years ago, and all these years later, as an adult, Timmy still remembers Jimmy, but refuses to talk about him. So what did you guys think about that story? I don't know what it was about that story. I still have chills on my entire body. I'm not even joking you. That freaked me out. I do not like kid ghosts. You guys already know this, but that was not a ghost. That you're hurting a child. I think that's a demon. No doubt in my mind that that is some type of demon, because ghosts don't harm children. Or at least I don't think that they do. I mean, that takes a special type of evil, in my opinion. So I personally think that this was a demon, and I think that that poor little boy, for whatever reason, I got the brunt of whatever was behind that door, because it is a little weird to me that why have a room in somebody's home that they can't go in? Like, number one, they're paying rent. So how are you going to tell them that they can't go into a part of their room? I guess if you're cutting that portion off of the rent, that's fine, right? It is the landlord's home after all. But generally speaking, it depends on what state you're in. But in New York State, yeah, we would be able to go in that room. You can't tell us that we can't. If your valuables are that important, why are they kept in a stranger's home? Like, you don't know if those people are going to open that door. I don't know. That whole thing is weird to me. What do you guys think about that portion of the story? I would love to know your thoughts on that portion of the story, because it does sound like that may be kind of correlated. But with that being said, I'm just glad that he is okay today, and that was all stopped, and that child stopped being, oh my God, that reminds me of a dream I had last night. So my dogs, as you guys know already, are literally my pride and joy. I love them with all my heart. And I know this is not the same thing as a child, but like, the love I have for my dogs is truly so unconditional. And I had a dream last night that Leo, my dog, well, one of them, was being harmed by a demon. And I couldn't stop it from happening because I didn't know how to stop. You can't stop something invisible from harming like someone you love. And I can imagine that that's how they felt. So that's super, and it was such a horrible dream. I've thought about it literally like for like the first 5 to 6 hours of today. I thought about this dream, and the fact that I just put this 2 and 2 together is super weird that I got this story tonight. Again, I know it's not the same thing as having a kid, but I still love them so much, and I would be heartbroken. Drop all your thoughts, opinions, and suggestions in the comments, but as always, please be respectful. And with that being said, we're now going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Felicia.Parker16. First and foremost, thank you so much for being a spooky baby, because if you guys don't know yet, that's what I'm calling you guys now. Thank you for commenting on my videos all the time. I appreciate that. That gets my videos pushed out, and you have no idea how much that means to me. Thank you for being kind. Thank you for being a part of my community, and just thank you for watching my videos as much as you do. That truly is so overwhelming, and I love it so much, and I just love you. Moon, River, and Bella, thank you also for being a spooky baby. Also, I love your profile picture. It is so cute. Thank you so much for commenting on my videos and pushing them out, and thank you for what you said. You complimented my makeup, which was so sweet. Such a girls thing to say. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of my community. I really hope you know how much I appreciate you. You are the best, and I love you, girl. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories and recommendations. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
This is a scary but true babysitting story. My friend Allie had just graduated college and she needed to make some extra money, so she put up ads in Craigslist offering babysitting services, and that was how she met this man named Caleb who had 3 children. Caleb hires Allie, but he has rules she has to follow. No TV, no radio, no crayons, no drawing, no stuffed animals, no dolls, any kind of characters. They can't talk about their mother, go outside, leave the house, or talk to anyone outside the house. She said, well, what can they do? He said they can play with each other, they can play with their toys, board games, they can sing, but that's it. And she would later find out there was a big reason he had all those rules. Allie asked Caleb, what happened to the kid's mother? Where is she? Caleb said, we don't talk about her. She abandoned us. She's a junkie. She chose drugs over us, so I took the kids and moved, and I've been raising them by myself ever since. So within a few weeks of working there, her and Caleb hit it off, and they start dating. One day while babysitting, the youngest child starts talking about his mother and how the last time he saw her, she had a big boo-boo on her head and wouldn't wake up. And Allie said, what happened? Before he could answer, the oldest child came in the room and said, stop talking about mommy. You know daddy don't like it. We'll get in trouble. Allie said, no honey, it's fine. You can talk about your mommy in front of me. I don't mind. I'd like to hear about her. And the oldest said, no, don't talk about mommy. We'll get in trouble. Like, she started crying. That hit Allie the wrong way. She said, look, when he gets home, I'm going to have a talk with him about this because y'all should be allowed to talk about your own mother. And the oldest begged her, no, please don't tell daddy, please. But when Caleb got off work, Allie sent the kids to their room and she brought it up to him. Allie said, what's this I hear the kids can't even talk about their own mother? Caleb said, no, I don't want them talking about that trash bag whore. I don't want her name brought up in my house. She left us. She abandoned them. Allie said, it's not right. You don't let them remember or talk about their own mother and you bash her to their face like that. That's only hurting them. They love her. He said, well, she don't love them. She's not here, is she? She said, I get it. You're angry that she abandoned y'all, but that don't make what you're doing okay. He said, well, they're my kids and I'll do what I want with them. And if you don't like it, you can leave. So she left. Well, the next morning, Caleb called Allie and apologized and said, look, you're right. My kids should be able to talk about their mom and I want you to come back. Please come back. Fast forward a few months, Caleb and Allie are still together and now Allie is living with them full time. So Caleb tells Allie that he found out the kids' mother was trying to take the children back. So now he doesn't want Allie to leave the house unless he's with her, just in case the mom tries something. Allie said, why can't y'all just sit down and work this out and co-parent? He said, because my ex is crazy and strung out. She'll kidnap the kids and trade them for drugs. She's done it before. We have to keep them away from her and her family. One day they're at the grocery store when this woman walks up and says, hey Caleb, can I see the kids? And Caleb screams, no, leave us alone, and then grabs the kids and runs out to the car. Allie said, what the hell's going on? Who was that? Caleb said, that's my ex, their mother. I told you she was going to try to kidnap them. We can't take the kids out anymore. They have to stay home. Now Allie is at home full time with the kids, homeschooling them, and they're even calling her mommy, and she believes everything Caleb is telling her. So one day Allie goes to her mom's house to get the rest of her stuff, and her mom says, look, a PI came by here and said it's urgent they talk to you. Here's his card. He wants you to call him back ASAP. So she calls him back and he says, look, I'm a retired police officer, but I work as a PI and I'm helping the police with this cold case that I really need to talk to you about. They meet up and the PI asks, are you dating Caleb Blank? Allie said, yeah, for over a year now. Why? He said, because he's the main suspect in a missing person case. She said, who's missing? He said, the kid's mother. She disappeared a couple of years ago and the last people who saw her alive was Caleb and those kids, so we need to find her. Allie said, well, I can put all this to bed right now. She's alive. We saw her in a store a while back. She was trying to speak to the kids, but Caleb wouldn't let her. We left. The PI pulled out a picture and said, is this the woman you saw in the store? Allie said, yeah, that's her. The PI said, that's not his ex-wife. That's her sister, his sister-in-law. We sent her there to make contact with the kids, hoping they would say something about their mother, but it didn't work because y'all left. Every time the family and the police try to make contact, he won't allow it. We even sent CPS workers out to his house and he wouldn't open the door and he keeps moving. Allie said, well, he told me she was strung out really bad. The PI said, no, she was never on drugs. Her job regularly drug tested her and she always passed, and she was a damn good mother. She would never have left her kids like that. Allie said, can you show me a picture of the mother? So the PI showed her. Allie said, oh my God, Caleb's been lying to me about her this entire time. She said, well, why hasn't he been arrested? The PI said, because there's no body, no evidence. He won't cooperate with the police and he won't let the kids talk to the police. We have nothing. But we think he's going to unalive those kids at some point. Allie said, why would he do that? He said, because we think they witnessed their mother's murder. They're witnesses. And as of right now, those kids are the only thing linking him to this crime. 2 weeks ago, he filed life insurance policies on each child for $800,000 apiece, but not one on himself. Allie said, I swear I had no idea. Allie said, oh my God, it makes sense. He's got a cruise planned for next month and the kids don't want to go because they can't swim. They're scared to death of water, but he's making them go anyways. I thought he was making them go because we don't have a babysitter, but this could be it. The PI said that's probably what it is. So either you need to get out or get on board and help us catch him. Allie said, I love those kids like they're my own. I got to get them babies out of there. What do you need me to do? He said, we need to talk to those kids because they might can tell us where her body is and then we'll have enough evidence to arrest him, but you're the only one he leaves alone with them, so can you make that happen? She said, yeah. He said, whatever you do when you get back home, act normal, pretend like everything's fine. Don't make him suspicious. But all she had to do was play her cards right and act normal until he went to work the next morning, and that's what she did. So while Caleb was at work, Allie let the police in the house to talk to the kids, and they took the kids down to the station for a forensic interview. The tech gave the kids crayons and paper and said, I want you to draw me a picture of what you saw the last time you were with your mother. Where were you? What were y'all doing? The middle child said, no, we can't talk about mommy. Daddy will get mad. We'll get in trouble. The interviewer said, it's okay. You can talk about whatever you want here. It's a safe space. One of the kids drew a big blue square around the stick figure, and when the cop asked, what is that? The child said, that's mommy's blanket. It's keeping her warm because it's cold in that hole. Mama has a big boo-boo on her head. It won't stop bleeding and she can't wake up. She won't talk to us. One child even said, did anyone take mommy food? Did she have food on Thanksgiving? Who feeds mommy? How does she get food? Like, this child was very concerned about his mother eating. So the oldest child draws her mother as a stick figure in a blue barrel, and when they asked how did she get in there, she said daddy put her in the blue barrel because she was sleeping. The woman said, do you know where that barrel is? Where's your mommy? And the child said, at me, mom, papa's house. To my Caleb's parents' house on their property. You could tell these kids have been waiting so long to get this stuff off their chest. The police bring Caleb down to the station for an interview where he denies everything and even calls his kids delusional and a bunch of little liars. He even blames his in-laws like they're trying to set me up. If anything happened to her, they did it. So the police search the parents' property, and way out in the woods is where they find blue barrels and a shallow grave. The kids were right. Then Caleb tries to pin the crime on his father, but all the kids testified their grandfather was nowhere around. The only person there was Caleb and the kids. And it was proven with evidence his parents were not involved and they had no idea her body was on their property the entire time. The police uncover over a big blue tarp that she was wrapped up in, just like the child had told them, her blanket. Which means the children saw this, and when they asked their father what that tarp was, he told them it was a blanket to keep their mom warm while she was in that hole. How sick. And there was blunt force trauma to her head, neck, and face, just like the kid said. Initially, he put her in the blue barrel, but later came back and buried her in a shallow grave, and both times he brought the kids with him and even had them participate in disposing of their mom's body. It turned out Caleb had all those rules for his kids because he didn't want them talking about or drawing out scenes from the murder they witnessed. So Caleb was arrested, and the kids were put into foster care for a few weeks up until the mom's family gained custody. Caleb was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole, and his parental rights were terminated. He's applied for parole several times, but has always been denied because he shows no remorse and takes no accountability. Oh, and the mom's family let Allie stay in the kids' lives because they were so appreciative of her solving their daughter's murder and putting that monster away. They got their grandkids back because of her.
Have you ever encountered a zombie? Well, my dad did. Scary story time. So, my dad used to work this job where he used to drive doctors around. Doctors that are from like the UK, the US, sometimes when things happen and doctors want to go and help. He worked for this company that is in charge of picking them up from the airport, taking them to hospitals, etc. And he used to work overnight from 4 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now, if you guys remember from my previous dad stories, his grandma's house is kind of like the hangout house. Not the house, like that whole block is like the hangout block. So he would get off of work, stop home, get some clothes, and go to the block, hang out, sleep, whatever, get ready for work at his grandma's house, and head to work when it's time. And this was like an everyday thing. Part of that block were a couple of guys that were cool with everybody, but also weren't really up to no good. They weren't really the kind of trustworthy guys that you can leave stuff around and think that it's still gonna be there. And they were very blunt about it. We all know those kinds of guys from our block. Now, the leader of that little gang group, he called himself Baka. If you know, you know. If you were cool with him, then you know you good. But if you're not really cool with him like that, he don't know you like that, he's gonna rob you. So him and my dad were really cool to the point where like they would joke around. If my dad would leave his motorcycle somewhere, he'll tell my dad like, listen, you better be lucky I like you my friend, because I'd have took that motorcycle. He had a certain amount of respect for my dad. It might seem like I'm giving a lot of details, but all of that is very important. So one day, my dad gets off of work as usual. He stops home, gets some clothes, and he's driving to his grandma's house. And as he's driving, he was maybe like 15-20 minutes away from his grandma's house. And he sees Baka. Baka just kind of like, oh, hey, Prince, what's up? So my dad got out the car, dapped him up, hugged him and everything. My dad like, yo, what you doing all the way over here? And he like, man, I came here to handle some things, you feel me? In my head, my dad's thinking like, you about to rob somebody. Anyway, they chop it up. They talk for a little bit. My dad gets back in the car and he goes to my grandma's house. As he's pulling up on the block is very quiet. Like the energy is off. Something happened. And as my dad is pulling up, everybody's looking at him and they seem like sad. So he gets there, he parks, and he gets out the car. And down the block, he's like way down the block, he sees like a group of people just there like talking. But the block is not like the fun block that it usually is. Something happened. So one of the guys that was part of Baka's little group comes up to my dad. Looking all sad, you know, they dapping each other up and stuff like that. And he starts talking about, you know, whatever. My dad really want to know what's going on. So he's like, bro, like in his head, he's like, I don't really care what you got going on, what you're telling me about right now. So my dad asks him, like, what happened? Like, what's happening? What happened? He looks at my dad with the saddest eyes and tells my dad, Baka's dead, bro.
Imagine you're a truck driver just doing your usual route. The only difference is that on this particular night, anytime you stop at a gas station, you come across the same creepy woman just standing there staring at you. Jorge had been a truck driver for the past 15 years and had never had anything really significant happen to him. This night was no different. He was very familiar with this route. He had done it a million times, and he had stopped at the same gas stations a million times. At his first stop, he happens to get out and he's like gassing up his truck. When he looks over, he sees a woman just standing there staring at him. He couldn't really make out her face. Her face was kind of covered by her hair. But you know when you have that gut-wrenching feeling that you're being watched? Like that's how he felt. It kind of threw him off, but he shrugged it off, continued putting gas in his truck, and left. Now, a few hours later, he stops at a second gas station. He gets out just like usual. When he looks over, he sees the same woman standing there, like the same clothes, the same posture. This time she's standing next to the ice machine and she's just watching him. This like really gives him chills, but once again, it's late at night. He just shrugs it off, figures that it must be just some like crazy coincidence, and he just leaves. Now, a few more hours go by. It's almost like daylight at this time. He stops at his third gas station. He gets out of his car, and the woman is there. This time, she's standing even closer to him. Every alarm bell in his body starts to go off. Like, he gets chills. He gets like really anxious, almost into like a panic attack state. He calls his wife and tries to like get her to calm him down. He explains the whole situation, and she tells him that maybe he's just hallucinating because he's tired, that maybe he should pull over and like take a nap, or maybe it's just like some crazy coincidence. She even made a joke like maybe it's just a woman that has a really big crush on you and has just been following you this whole night. He didn't really find that funny. That unfortunately would be the last time that she would ever hear her husband's voice. A few hours later, she received a phone call from the police letting her know that her husband had passed away. He drove straight off of an embankment, like straight off. There were no skid marks. There was no signs that he tried to brake. He literally just drove straight off into like a cliff and passed away. Thinking back to the conversation that she had with her husband that night, she now believes that what was following him was in fact death, escorting him to his final stop.
Can we show him the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
Do you believe in vampires? Yes. Let's talk about vampires, because what the There's been TikToks of people telling stories about how they have met vampires IRL.
Let's talk about real vampires. Get cozy because I have tea that I am going to spill. I'm going to tell you the truth about real vampires. What are real vampires? The different types of real vampires, how they feed, everything I know about them, studies that have been done on them. And lastly, why I don't just knock the belief in real vampires. Quickly, if you don't know, my name is Megan. I'm a paranormal investigator. Search the paranormal, folklore, cryptids, the fae, the occult, which has led me on my journey to my research on real vampires. So what are real vampires? They are not the same thing as vampires from legend and folklore. They don't turn into bats. They don't suck pomegranate juice from your neck. They don't have an aversion to garlic. And they're not immortal, at least not in the way that we believe in immortality. Real vampires are very similar to your modern day witch. And I will get into that further into this video. Real vampires are essentially everyday people who require subtle energy to survive. So they need more than food, water, sleep, a roof over their head. They need something extra, something like subtle energy. So how do they consume that energy? How do they feed? That's where the different types come in. One type that has been talked about a lot is the sanguinarians or sanguines. These are the real vampires that do in fact consume pomegranate juice. There is lots of different ways that they might feed. Some real vampires will actually use something like a scalpel and have someone who is their donor who consents to giving them their pomegranate juice, and they will use their mouth on that person's body to consume the pomegranate juice. It's hard to say all this on TikTok. That being said, there are real vampires who actually have donors that give them a good amount of pomegranate juice to last them a while. Those real vampires will typically freeze that pomegranate juice and then later put it in something like their tea. I'm going to stick with my Earl Grey. Then we have energy vampires, and these are real vampires that consume subtle energy. But there can be different ways in which they consume this energy. For instance, there are energy vampires who consume energy schmexually. They need to get down with someone in order to get that energy that they require. Then we have energy vampires who consume energy by doing something that is like a massage. It's similar to Reiki. Imagine that you as a person, you don't just have your blood, your bones, and your organs. You also have this energy within you. They take your energy. Many real vampires do have donors that they get this energy from, although some also do what's called ambient feeding. So the idea is that if there's a large group of people, there's basically leftover energy or kind of energy that sits on top of a crowd. A real vampire will take that energy into themselves. Real vampires are typically self-identified as such and as needing something like subtle energy to survive. There have been studies done on them, and I will get into that in a minute. In the vampiric community, consent is essential and is discussed thoroughly, meaning if they are going to be taking pomegranate juice or energy from someone else, they are close with that person or close enough that they are asking that person if they can take those things. It's mutually agreed upon. That being said, real vampires can be good, bad, or somewhere in between and neutral. They're people. Not all of them are going to care about consent. On the flip side, there could be real vampires who do not know they are real vampires and are acting instinctually to take others' energy. Another way that some real vampires feed is emotionally, and that is where things could get sticky in terms of being manipulative or things like that. Although I have met a couple of real vampires who did not care about consent, most of the real vampires that I have met and have spoke to in length really do value consent and are amazing people. Let's talk about some real studies that have been done on real vampires.
Remember how I be telling y'all, if you hear somebody knocking on your door or you hear somebody's voice but no one is home, never open the door? Scary story time. And this story this time is actually not my dad's story, it's my friend's story. She's also Haitian and she wanted to share her story with you guys. So when her family was supposed to come to this country, coming from Haiti, they kept it a secret. And this is actually a common thing because even with me too, when I was coming, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew but me, my dad, and my grandma, and my uncle. And my uncle was a pastor. Well, is a pastor. But the reason for that is people are jealous and people will do anything to stop you from where you need to be. When they see you prospering and it's not them, I've seen it happen so many times in Haiti. Anyway, so that was the case for her and her family. At the time, it was her and her brother. And when I tell y'all, it was an absolute secret. Nobody knew they were coming to America but the people living in their house. It was literally top secret, which is why it was shocking to her mom when she got a phone call from a church member. Mind y'all, they weren't even that close. Like that church member, it's not like they were like best friends. It was just somebody they went to church with, and she actually lived very far too. Now, there was this lady that they knew, that everybody knew was a lugau, but it wasn't their business, you feel me? Like that's the lady's problem. That's her, she do her. Anyway, so the mom gets a phone call from the church member, and the church member tells her mom, I had a dream and I know that you guys are leaving. You guys are going to America, but so-and-so, the lady that's a lugau, does not like that. And she has something planned for y'all so that it does not happen. Mind y'all, they don't even know how the lugau lady found out that they're leaving. But I mean, you know, lugau. The church member tells her from her dream that she was told to tell her mom these instructions. First one is, of course, make sure that nobody else finds out. The second one was there was this uniform they used to wear to church for Saturday services. She tells them to keep that uniform and all of their clothes that they're going to wear until the day that they leave, and make sure that nobody touches those clothes. And the last thing that she told her to do was that the car that was supposed to transport them to the airport, change it. Absolutely change it. So they did all of that. They prayed, they followed directions and stuff like that, and everything worked out well. They got here thinking it was over, but woo, was it far from over.
This next story is from one of my listeners, and she sent me this story, and honestly, when she told it me, I actually had real shivers. It really made me feel really creeped out. And it's again another one that's based around a basement. So let's get started with Lucy's story. I've changed her name because she didn't want to be named. So Lucy said that she grew up in a typical farmhouse cottage in UK. She actually didn't live there, it was her auntie's house, but she grew up there and she spent the majority of her time there. Her cousin, who was a similar age to her, loved her going around there. They spent so much time together. But one afternoon they were playing and her cousin said to her, should we do hide and seek? And this was something that they did on a regular basis. And she said, you can picture this cottage. It had a beautiful garden and they had acres of land that surrounded like woodland area where they would play. But this time it was the winter and they had to do hide and seek in the house. This house also had a basement, and the basement, she said, was used basically just for storage. So they had like a pantry down there, and at the end of the basement there was another little door which was, she said, always locked. She never went in it. The handle was all rusted, so they never even tried to open it. They were only kids anyway, so she said they would just hide down there. There was like big boxes down there, stuff like that, and they would just hide behind them. But she said she never ever felt creeped out by the basement. In fact, if anything, she didn't feel anything in the property at all. Anyway, so they were doing hide and seek, and she said her cousin went to hide. So Lucy said she went down to the basement. She was obviously seeking to find her cousin. So she went down to the basement, and she said as she was looking down there and she was calling for her cousin's name, she heard laughing, like little kids giggling. So she assumed that it was her cousin. So she said that she could hear this laughing coming from the end of the basement where the door is at the end, the locked door that you can't get to. So she went down to the end door and put her ear to it to have a listen. For a second she said she couldn't hear anything, but then she heard the giggling again, assuming it was her cousin. "I found you," she said, "come out." She tried to open the door. The door was locked. She heard the giggling again. "I found you," she said, "you can come out now." Lucy tried to open the door, but again it was locked. She couldn't open it. "How did you get in there?" said Lucy. No response. "I found you and I'm going back upstairs now, so I'm going to do the hiding and you're going to have to come and find me." Lucy said she proceeded to go back up the stairs, and then she heard a voice directly behind her. She spun around, but there was nothing there. She said it sounded more like a little girl whispering, but she said that she couldn't really make out what this whispering was, but she said she definitely heard it, and she just assumed that it was her cousin messing around. So now feeling a little bit freaked out, she said, "I'm going back upstairs now." So she went back upstairs to the living room, which was apparently directly off the basement steps. And as she walked up the steps and back up into the living room, there was her cousin sat on the sofa. There was my cousin sat on the sofa looking at me as if I was mad. "How did you get up here?" I said to her. "I've been up here all the time," she said. "I was looking for you and I couldn't find you, so I sat here waiting for you." I actually could not believe it, and my heart literally leapt out of my mouth when I thought, well then who was that downstairs? I sat on the sofa next to my cousin and I told her what I'd heard. "Oh, that's fine," she said. "You've just met Martha." My skin crawled. "What do you mean? Who is Martha?" "She lives in the cupboard downstairs," said my cousin. "She comes out from time to time and we play occasionally." "Are you kidding me?" I said. "She's fine, she doesn't hurt you." From that day on, I actually believed in ghosts, because I had definitely heard giggling and laughing behind that door, and somebody had whispered in my ear as I'd walked up those steps. So whoever this ghost was, I have no idea, but she was apparently called Martha and she used to live in the house. How creepy is that?
Want to get creeped out? This is a follower horror story revolving around black dogs, which are famous in folklore and basically bad omens or omens of death. Hi, you asked me to message you with some of my black dog stories, so here we go. I live very close to Sherwood Forest. Our towns are surrounded by woodland, and most places can feel quite isolated, even though you're often less than a mile from civilization. Many of the town's inhabitants were miners when I was growing up, and they were often coming and going at all hours of the day. One of the stories that stands out to me the most was my stepdad telling me about the black dog of Yorkshire. He often worked nights as the pay was better and was working with a miner named Pat, who had moved around a fair bit. This wasn't overly unusual. The mines were quite well connected by the coal board, but he moved often enough that it struck my dad as strange. Pat was originally from Yorkshire, but he had been out as far as Wales for work and back again. My stepdad, being quite blunt, asked him why he never stayed and settled anywhere. He refused to answer, just clammed up and wouldn't speak about it at all. Suspicion and rumor were often ridiculed in grueling jobs like that and the dangers they faced on a daily basis. Tunnels collapsed, electrical coils fell, cages dropped, and cart lines broke. The stories they all told of the ways they faced death daily were endless. Anyway, one day, my dad was on shift with him and his car broke down. They were on nights, which had them clocking off about 10 p.m. It was an icy winter that year. We'd already had a couple of snows, so dad offered him a lift home. It wasn't a long drive, so Pat agreed. On the path to Pat's, the drive took them along the outskirts of Sherwood Forest. Sherwood Forest is old. I still live near there today. The trees are ancient and gnarled, and that's before we even begin to discuss the major oak or the legends of Robin Hood. As they passed, Pat began to get fidgety. He kept checking dad's mirrors and looking looking up and down the tree line. This distracted Dad. He asked him what the problem was, but again, Pat would not speak. Eventually, Dad turned to look at him, taking his eyes off the road briefly to look at him. As he did, Pat screamed. Dad turned back just in time to slam on the brakes. In front of the car was a dog he claimed was the size of a small pony. Its eyes shone an unnatural yellow, reflecting brightly under his headlights, but the body of the dog was barely visible. It was so dark that it merged with the long shadows cast by the stoic forest. This is a good writer, the person who sent me this. It danced a little on its front paws before retreating to the underbrush of the trees. Both men sat in silence. The sense of unease my dad felt struck him right at his core, and he often said that it felt as though a block of ice had been forcefully rammed into his guts as the thing stared at him. When the shock had worn off, Dad shook it off and began driving again. He tried to strike up conversation, but Pat just stared straight ahead. Despite the coal dust that still coated his face, Dad said that he could tell that all the color had drained from Pat's face. He threatened to stop the car, and Pat became inconsolable. In his panic, he confessed that the black dog had haunted him ever since childhood. Every time it turned up, disaster followed. He said that he had to leave, and he had to leave now. Dad laughed it off. He didn't believe that it was anything to worry about. He had never been so wrong. Pat didn't turn up to work the next day. After Dad had left him, he began packing and already requested a transfer from the board by the time night started the next day. Something I should mention about my stepdad at this point. He was an electrician, a bit sparky they called them, and he worked on the big underground lifts that transported men and equipment to active coal seams. He was working on one with a colleague when the cabling snapped. The cable itself was thicker than an adult's thigh, and it wrapped around him faster and faster and falling into the shaft below. His colleague was a quick thinker, and luckily for Dad, he was throwing the loops off him as quickly as they were forming. If it hadn't been for that guy, he'd have been cut in two. God, that's terrifying. When he was finally clear, the two of them took off outside as they were very shaken up. They stood on the pit top and had a cigarette. Suddenly, Dad got that icy feeling in his gut again. He looked over the stretch of the tip, and in the distance, he could see the reflection of those strange yellow eyes. He swears that the incident was linked to the black dog. He said he felt like the thing wanted to make a point that not only was it real, but that if he didn't pay it the right respect, he wouldn't get the opportunity to tell the tale. He became a believer overnight. I'm lucky enough to live in a very old, very creepy part of the world. If you like stories like this, I'm happy to send you some of the others. The regulars at the haunted pub I worked in had a fair few stories of their own about black dogs, cryptids, and ghosts too. Definitely send us more stories. This was such a cool story, terrifying, but so cool. So yes, please send us more stories. Anyways, that's it for this one. See you next time.